We're live.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a long time coming Cowbell Kingdom podcast. It's been a while. Matt George from Sports 1140 KHTK, Leo Beas from Cowbell Kingdom. We're here recapping another loss to the San Antonio Spurs in San Antonio, a game that we will talk about a little bit. That's actually really not going to be the focus of this podcast. We're going to be talking mostly on Coach Joerger's rotations, the development of the young guys. And then I want to talk a little bit about Vlade Divac's kind of performance evaluation over the few years that he has been the Sacramento Kings general manager, and really the outlook for the future. Because in the grand scheme of things, Leo, tonight I'm saying was a great night for the Sacramento Kings. I know a lot of fans are going to see that and freak out and not agree with me. That's okay. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But I have been gone. I've been away for a little under a week. I went to Arizona for spring training because, thank God, baseball season is almost here. And I'm sure a lot of Kings fans, who I know a lot of Kings fans are San Francisco Giants fans. We also have some A's fans, and then everyone else in the MLB. Typically around this time when we recognize that the Sacramento Kings aren't going to be in the playoffs, we look forward to the baseball season as a new fresh start and a new hope. And if you ever get the chance ever to go to Arizona to watch spring training, I highly recommend it. It is so much fun. It's so relaxed. The players are great. The weather is phenomenal. The fields are gorgeous. We stayed in Mesa, Arizona, where the A's play and the Cubs also play there. Also traveled to Scottsdale to see a Giants game as well. It was a blast of a time. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back around the Sacramento Kings. And I'm curious, Leo, what you have been up to and what you have been watching, because I really tuned out from the Kings for the past week, and you went to a couple of home games. So from your perspective, really, what has been going on, and are the Kings on track for what we want as of right now?
That's why I couldn't wait to do a podcast with you, Matt. And I did I thought it was a small one, but it ended up being an hour yesterday by myself. And I was like, how did I talk about Kings basketball for an hour and 5 minutes? That was crazy. That's more when it's you and me, but I was just so excited, Matt. Again, when you have a guy like Scalabca, Buddy Hield, it really excites you, and it brings back the excitement that was gone. I'll be honest, when the Kings were losing with DeMarcus, it was just bad basketball for me. I wasn't having fun no more, and now the locker room, even when they lose, it's so positive. And, we're beginning to see the bright future that this team really does have. And, tonight, Scal once again showed off his amazing talent, Matt. Oh, my gosh. I mean, I can rave about this guy all day long. I started raving about him in Summer League, and you know what? He's putting them well together right now. He's playing well. And the one thing that does upset me is that Coach Dave Joerger took him out in crucial moments where I thought it would have been good for his development. So, but we'll dive into that in a little bit, man.
Yeah, so we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on a lot of things, really. We're going to try and stray away from talking about the Pelicans and DeMarcus Cousins as much as possible, guys. I know it's still a hot button issue. I know people are still interested in it.
They suck with DeMarcus, though, bro.
Again, we're going to try and stay away from it as much as possible because in the grand scheme of things, the trade is done. The move is over. DeMarcus is a Pelican. That's the fact of the matter. Now, we will talk about how the Pelicans are doing as it relates to the draft pick that the Sacramento Kings are going to receive. But really, we want to try and stray away from the just focus on DeMarcus Cousins for 20-minute conversation because really it's old, it's tired, and quite frankly, the Kings organization is ready to move on. I don't know and don't really care if DeMarcus Cousins is ready to move on. So we as a fan base and we as media should be expected to move on as well. And so in moving on, we need to talk about player development. And you mentioned Scal. And Scal has one thing that really we've lacked out of rookies. Malachi Richardson to some extent, but I would say Scal even more is just this comfort level immediately with the game and knowing what he does best and doing that. And how many times have we said a lot of times rookies are going to come into the league, they're going to hear the hype against them, and they're going to hear what people are saying about them negatively, things they need to work on, and then they're going to focus their efforts on that rather than do what it is they do best that got them into the league in the first place. We saw that with Jimmer Fredette trying to do more defense instead of shooting outside shots. You see that with shooters all the time trying to focus more on defense or attacking the basket rather than shooting the basketball, which is what they do. Skal Labissiere has come in and he's known where his strengths are and he's exploited those strengths. He's recognized that he doesn't have the girth or the size to really be a post threat in the paint down low, but he's able to use his quickness, his speed, and his athletic ability to be at least not a hindrance on the glass. And he's allowed his mid-range game, his turnaround jumpers to allow him to find his niche in the offense. I've been really impressed, Leo, with just the kid mentally and how he has known what he does best and how he's able to incorporate that into a system that, quite frankly, he spent very little time to no time being a part of.
If you recall, we had Graham Bachart on, right? His mental skills coach. He did say he would be an all-star, and he did say that mentally he would be there when time came. And, oh, boy, we're beginning to see that, Matt. And I'm going to tell you this right now. We're going to have on Graham on Monday, I believe. So he's going to be at the Golden One Center watching the Magic and the Kings. I believe that's the matchup since he does work with Skal and Aaron Gordon. So it's going to be fun to catch up with Graham and really take notice of how much Skal has grown this entire season. So I know you're looking forward to it. I am too, and I can't wait for that, man.
No, it's certainly going to be exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm more excited just to see how the development continues. And immediately I look at the comment section, and what's the first thing I see? Skal Labissiere needs to put on weight. And I totally agree. He does need to put on weight. He does need to build up that body. But most rookies, most players his age are not going to be at the weight and the muscle definition and the strength level that you want them to be. Part of that is because they're 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old men going up against 28, 29, 30 physical specimen in the peak of their athletic prime. It's going to take time for him to put that weight on. I certainly think he's definitely capable of doing that, and I hope that he will be able to do that. But one thing I look to for Skal is I see his game, and I see he has ability to score inside and attack the basket when he needs to. But the Kings have really lacked something that's become a staple for most successful teams, I should say, in the NBA. And that's a strong, positive stretch four who can also play defense. The one thing I want Skal to really work on is his lateral and vertical quickness. Because if he can hone that in, if he can add weight while keeping that quickness, he can be not a liability on the defensive end. And then we've already seen his shooting and scoring ability. If you're able to get someone who can, whether he starts, which is unlikely, or comes off the bench and gives you maybe 10, 15 points, but also plays somewhat decent defense against stretch fours and even fives at times, what more could you ask from the kid? And I think that's a realistic expectation for Skal.
Are you talking about year two?
Not necessarily. I think there was a poll that went out. I can't remember who posted it, but I saw it on Twitter tonight. It was asking what Skal will be, and a heavy starter, a limited starter, a heavy player off the bench, or a limited player off the bench coming into year two. I think people are, and I think Willie Cauley-Stein is a great example, towards the end of the season when you're playing for development purposes and you're not really playing to win necessarily, although the Kings will try and tell you they're doing otherwise. When you're playing really garbage games at the end of the season, you don't want to, I hate saying garbage because it almost sounds like you're discrediting the games because you're still playing NBA level competition. But let's be honest, they play the Spurs tonight without Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge. When you're playing those kind of games at the end and you're succeeding and playing well as a rookie, it's encouraging, but it's not really an absolutely golden example of who that player is going to be. That being said, I think Kings fans who see Skal's solid development and good play over the past couple of games and immediately think, oh man, we could use him as a go-to sixth or seventh man off the bench for 25, 30 minutes a night. I think that's unrealistic, and I think that's not fair to put that kind of pressure on the young man's shoulders. All I want from him is to continue to show improvement, continue to learn. He's going to make mistakes, but I just want to see that steady improvement, and I want to see that effort and intensity still there, even through the tough times, even through year 2. I'm very impressed that he's been able to do it after sitting on the bench for most of the season. Year 2, I want to see steady improvement to where year 3, year 4, then we're starting to get an understanding of really what consistent role he can play for this team. But I think people need to be careful not trying to put too much on him year 2, because year 2 can sometimes be just as challenging, if not more challenging, than year 1. You talk about the sophomore slump. That often hinders a lot of rookies. You look what happened to Tyreek Evans after his rookie season. So I'm just looking for steady improvement, Leo. That's all I really want.
I think with Tyreek, it was more of injuries. And again, Scal, if he plays a lot more minutes, he's going to get banged up. And injuries, to me, will be a concern, which is why weight is such a big concern going into year 2. But again, he's going to have summer league, and he's going to have an entire offseason with the best trainers in the world, with the best chefs in the world, Matt. So if he really puts on 15 pounds of actual muscle weight, I think he'll be fine. Honestly, you can't replicate or ask for that type of talent, and Scal has that talent, Matt. And I think year 2 is going to be huge for this kid. I expect a lot of things, and I will put that pressure on him because Scal has embraced that pressure already. He was the top recruit coming out of high school. He didn't do too well at Kentucky, but he's rebounded nicely. I feel like here at the NBA level, he knows that these guys, these stretch fours, can't guard him. It's very obvious in his demeanor and the way and how he walks and how he runs and just his fadeaway jump shots, like with so much confidence. That's when you know that you have that skill. He knows that. Even, yeah.
No, keep going.
Even if I think TV showed a little bit of him going to the bench and him just smirking like, yeah, I'm the man. And yeah, I got it.
Okay, but I think we really need to slow down really quick, Leo, because it's not been a very big sample size. We've only seen, 5, 6, 7 games maybe with him getting these consistent minutes. That's not nearly enough to suggest that this kid is ready to take some big leap. We've seen the skill set. We've seen the raw talent.
He's been good in every single game, though.
Exactly, and that talent proves that he belongs in this league. That talent doesn't tell me, and those 7 games don't tell me what he can be in this league. Again, as successful and as well as he's not playing major minutes on a winning program, and he's not changing games. Now, he was one of the major reasons why the Kings were able to build a 28-point lead tonight. And I'm not discrediting anything that he's done. What I'm trying to do is just be careful, because we got this excited about Willie Cauley-Stein, and then he started this season in a slump, playing terribly, barely grabbing rebounds and looking lost. And what was the one word that came out everywhere? Bust, 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 bust. We just need to slow down, calm down, and not put the pressure. It's really not, though.
Yeah, well, Willie wasn't as good, and especially Scal's already better offensively, Matt. I mean, there's no question about it.
Yes, but Willie is already more athletic and a better defender than Scal. And that's fine. Each of them have their own pitches and their own benefits. So people cannot compare Willie to Scal and Scal to Willie in terms of, because Scal is a more of an offensive stretch-minded player. Willie, I see more as a Tyson Chandler or DeAndre Jordan, someone who's athletic. The point is, we haven't seen a big enough sample size, and it's bad. Oh, it almost never works to put that much pressure on the shoulders of a journeyman young player who's just trying to figure out his niche and figure out his role and figure out what he can be in this league. We see the talent, and we can get excited about that, and I totally understand, and I don't want to poop on everybody's parade here. But Scal needs a lot more time, and Scal needs to go through his first real struggles and pitfall in the NBA, his real first slump, not as a bench player, but as someone who's playing consistent minutes. He needs to go through that slump, and the way he reacts in that and the way he works through that and the way he comes out of that will suggest to me what kind of player he's going to be in the league. Because right now we've seen 7 good games out of Scal. He may have good to decent games for the rest of this season. You give him too much at the start of next season, depending upon what kind of summer he has, and he slumps and he tanks and he plays terribly and loses all sorts of confidence. Suddenly, we don't know what kind of player he's going to be. And suddenly, the things that he was doing well, he's not doing well anymore. And we just don't know that yet. The pressure that is put on rookies is one of the main, in my opinion, is one of the leading factors to why they become busts, because they hear that pressure. They recognize that pressure. Skal is successful right now because he's playing without a lot of that pressure. He's playing because he knows, okay, there's not really too much expected of me right now on a team that nobody's really expecting to do anything. I can go out and play my game and prove what I can do. He's playing relaxed, and that's why he's so successful. You start putting that pressure and that tension on him, and he locks up. Suddenly, he's a different player. That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, but we don't know that. We don't know that yet either, Matt. I mean, even if we do give him, say, the keys to the car, we don't know if he's going to embrace it and actually take advantage of it. Right now, you're right. We have seen small sample sizes of Skal, and he has excelled in these last 7 games. There's no question about it. I honestly believe that. Look, I like what Dave is doing in terms of not throwing them out there, how they did it with Ben McLemore, right? Where they just threw him into the fire and he just looked lost since day one. But the big difference is, and you can testify to this, when you're a very good rookie, Tyreek was a great rookie. Yeah, he was on a bad team, but you could tell that he was a baller from day one and that he belonged from day one. I didn't get that vibe from Ben McLemore, and I get that vibe from Skal. So when you know that you're already better than most of these veterans on this team, you want to play these minutes, Matt. As a basketball player, from a basketball player standpoint, you want those minutes. From a coaching standpoint, it's the same mindset you have. You want to be precautious about things. You don't want to put that much pressure. But when you're that good and that talented already, you want and you live for those moments, Matt.
I'm looking at a game log right now, and I'm counting the games, the past amount of games that he's had decent numbers and put up significant minutes in. And I'm looking at 7 games. Yeah, 7 games. How can anyone make a valid decision based off of if someone is ready or not based off of 7 games? And I'm not addressing you, Leo. I'm addressing this guy on the comments section here that says that Skal Labissiere is ready to play. You are naive. 7 games is not nearly enough of a sample size to see if this guy is NBA ready. He's putting up decent numbers and he's playing well on a bad team. That means nothing. Rookies do that all the time. Look at what even the Philadelphia 76ers had leading scorers for the past 2 seasons. Finally, they're starting to see development. But guys, it does not mean that he is ready to play in this league. I'm sorry, once again, to put everybody's hopes and dreams down, because I do think Skal is a great player. I do think Skal could be potentially one of the best rookies that the Kings have had in a long time. I think he can, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I think he can absolutely be the stretch 4 that the Kings need to become a winning team. I really firmly do believe that. But I'm not going to throw all my chips in the middle of the table off of one player that I've seen a sample size of 7 games from, who, quite frankly, I mean, he had a good game tonight, 15 points. He's had 1 15-point game, 2 10-point games, and 1 12-point game. Yes, he's played limited minutes. A lot of it is because Dave Joerger, for some reason, is not putting him in the second half after he's had strong first halves. But that's not enough time to see what this guy can do. Evidently, there's something going on to where Dave is not playing him much in the second half. Now, we don't know what that is, because every time we try and ask him about it, he says nothing. And he's getting more and more frustrated with getting that question, even though in our mind and to the fans, it's a completely valid question. But Dave's not going to tell us anything as to why he's not playing Skal. So we're just going to have to kind of quit or give up on that sense, because we don't know. We can throw our own accusations or ideas out there, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't know. But back to Skal himself. Yes, he has the skill set. Yes, he's playing well right now. And yes, he's super exciting to watch. And there's a lot to hope for the future. But if you throw all your chips onto the back of this kid on a team that really we don't know what kind of direction they're going to go in or who their centerpiece is going to be, he's going to fail and you're going to be disappointed. I'm sorry. That's just how it's been. And if you want an example of that or a sample of that, look at every single draft pick for the Kings in the past 10 years, even DeMarcus Cousins to some extent. Everybody threw all their chips in on DeMarcus Cousins. He put up outstanding numbers, and he was still disappointed because the Kings weren't winning. It does not work. Let the kid develop, be excited, but don't throw everything in on him because you're going to be disappointed.
But when you look at his per 40 minutes, Matt, he's averaging close to 22 points. So in a sample size, yeah, he's not averaging great numbers, but per 40 minutes, he's averaging 22 and like 15 boards a game. So
but we haven't seen a per 40 minutes is a great stat, but it doesn't recognize how he's playing in 40 minutes. Let me try and reiterate that better.
I get it. But that's
Scal plays well for 15 minutes a game. So his per 40 minutes is good, right? But we haven't seen how he plays after 25 minutes or 30 minutes. We haven't seen.
That's because he hasn't gotten a chance to.
Exactly. But also, if he's playing well, if he's putting up 28 minutes or if he's putting up, what do you say, like 28 points per 40 minutes? Is that what you said? Something around that range?
Yeah, it's like 22 points.
If he's scoring at that clip, defenses are going to change and going to adapt to him. We haven't seen how he's been able to adjust.
Absolutely, I agree.
The point is, we haven't seen enough yet to say with confidence that he is ready. I do believe he deserves more minutes. I want to see him play more minutes. It is beside me why he isn't playing more minutes. I know you totally agree, and I know a lot of fans agree. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing people thinking that he's ready to be a starter or ready to be a go-to piece for the Kings, or he's going to be a star right now. That's naive, and that's ridiculous to think that. But
I agree with that.
It is okay to think, get this kid more minutes and let's see what he can do, because quite frankly, that's what the rest of the season is for.
Yeah, and Dave needs to understand that, and I get it. Technically speaking, they're still close to the playoffs, and Dave's going to play his guys because the veterans have busted their butts all year long, and you have to reward that, right? That's just how prototypical of any coach, right? So he's going to play his guys, but what I don't like was that Scal was a huge part of why the Kings were even close in that fourth quarter, and he made one mistake, and to take him out in that crucial moment, to me, that's where these guys learn from their mistakes. That was a huge mistake. And, I don't like to really question Dave because Dave's doing a marvelous job. And I like how he's approaching the rookies and how he's not handing them the keys to the car. But when Scal puts you in that situation and Scal brought you there, you need to go with him. And that's something that he didn't do tonight. And that really upset me. So if I have to be critical of Dave, that was a huge moment for me where I was like, wait, you can't take this guy out. And he did. So, and he put him in for Costa, and then Costa got destroyed in that pick and roll, and Dave was on his butt too. So I was like, well, if this is the final result, you could have had this moment, this teaching moment with Scal. Like, I'd rather Scal mess that up than the guy that's a veteran and a very good veteran than Costa. But I want Scal messing up in those moments. That way he can learn from those moments, Matt.
And I totally agree with you there. And I want to take it one step further. Even if Scal is not having a good game or having nearly the first half that we saw, I want to see how the kid can work through it in the second half. I want to see, like he said, as you go through those struggles and those pits and those droughts, how do you approach it? How do you work yourself out of it? That's a big indication of what kind of player and how successful you are going to be in this league. So I would love to see Dave Joerger, even when Scal makes a mistake and he only has 2 points in 6 or 10 minutes, I want to see Scal still out there and see how he's going to address it and how he's going to work through it. Now, if he's a liability, which I don't think Scal ever once yet has been a liability, then yes, you take him out. But in a game, in a situation like that against a good program like the San Antonio Spurs, who you just knew were going to make a comeback even if they didn't have Kawhi and LaMarcus Aldridge, that's just the San Antonio Spurs. Those minutes are quality minutes. And I would have liked to see Scal in there, even after his mistakes, battle through it. And I think it speaks volumes when a coach sees a rookie do that, pulls him over, and just says, hey, forget about it, move on, next play, let's figure this out. I'm not going to sit here and say that Dave sent a message to Scal and Scal may have lost faith in Dave, or that Scal may think now that Dave doesn't like him because he pulled him after that. But the confidence that the moment, that was a good teaching moment right there, Leo, that I think Joerger may have missed And I'm not
Yeah.
going to rip him for his player development and his teaching moments because of his success in the NBA D League. I know he knows how to get it done. But that particular moment, I firmly believe that they could have had him. He could have pulled Scal over or had just a second to tell Scal, you made this mistake. You know what to do better. I need you to work through this. You got us here. Finish it. Something of that nature. That does wonders for the confidence of a young guy. And that was a moment that I really think Dave could have done better or capitalized on tonight.
And I believe Dave will own up to that, and he will admit that he made a mistake, because Dave's that type of guy. He's not a prideful, boastful guy. He'll say, "Yeah, I'm always right." That's what makes him such a good coach, that he does admit where he had his mess ups, right? And that's what you want in a head coach. So maybe after the game, I hope he spoke to him and said, "Hey, dude, this is how I felt at the moment. Sorry for pulling you out." Having those teaching moments and beginning to develop that trust with Scal, because Scal's here. As far as we know, Scal's here for the long term. Dave's here for the long term. So, again, it could have been a good teaching moment, but it didn't happen. Now it's just a matter of recognizing that he made a mistake. And I think that'll mean even a lot more, or it'll mean that much more, to Scal.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, tonight wasn't a bad night, Leo. A lot of people are left with a sour taste in their mouth, but let's look at the things that we got here. The three major elements that make tonight a good night. One, the Sacramento Kings lost. Now, that's a tough one for people to swallow, but we want the Kings to lose to hold on to the draft pick, because it's pretty clear that they're not going to make the playoffs. And I don't care how many times I hear from the Kings organization that playoffs are still in their mindset. I can understand it from a player and coaching standpoint, because coaches don't care about their draft picks. Well, Dave might, because he's in for the long haul. But the players in the locker room right now don't care about their draft pick situation. They care about winning. So I understand it there. But the fans and the front office of the Sacramento Kings, as much as they say they don't, they want the Kings to lose, because they want to hold on to that draft pick. So that's number one. Number two, the New Orleans Pelicans lost. You're getting a draft pick from the New Orleans Pelicans. You want them to lose as much as possible, so that pick is as high, or I suppose low, as possible, because you want it to be, as long as it doesn't fall, I think it's within the top three, which that would be a disaster of monumental proportions, which I don't think it's possible, but hey, anything can happen. That would be the most Kings thing to happen if they lose that pick with the DeMarcus Cousins trade. So that's number two. And number three is kind of a two-parter. One, you got player development, which you want to see. You got solid minutes out of Scal this year, which is definitely what you wanted to see. So that's encouraging. And the other part of that is we're still getting entertaining games, Leo. There have been a couple of them in the post-DeMarcus era since this trade that have been like, oh boy, God, these are really, really tough to watch.
That was before practice time, though.
Yeah, but for the most part, we're seeing entertaining ball games. And when you're trying to lose games, but you're still watching the team, that's really all you can ask for. That's kind of the best that you can get, is an entertaining loss. And quite honestly, the Kings were fun to watch tonight. It didn't end up working out, which is a good thing. But the Kings were fun to watch. The game was close. The game was entertaining. The Kings went into San Antonio and proved that they're not just some lapdog to be walked over. In the grand scheme of things, tonight, in my opinion, was a phenomenal night for the Sacramento Kings.
Agreed. Now let's move on to Buddy. I want your reactions on Buddy. I know you haven't watched the past couple games, but tonight, what did you see? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear yours first.
You know what I see from Buddy, and one play that really sticks out to me is something that I want to see him do more, and I think is a really underrated part of his game, is Buddy Hield came out of college as a shooter, right? And we expect him to be a shooter, and we want him to be that perimeter scorer that the Kings so desperately need and haven't really had since Kevin Martin. The Kings want him to be that, and we as a fan base want him to be that, and he knows that he can be that. However, because of his athletic ability, Buddy Hield does have the ability to attack the basket. And I would like to see him do that more, but one play in particular that stood out to me was Buddy attacking the basket. People rotated in front of him, and then he just had a quick little shuffle pass to, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Costa Koufos, but it was someone in the post that ended up finishing an easy layup down low. Those are elements of Buddy's game that I love to see come out more and more, and I love to see develop. I want to see him shoot with more confidence, which we'll get there with time. I want to see him attack the basket with more confidence, and I want to see him play freely and open his game up so he can show us really what he can do, and he can get comfortable with all aspects of his game rather than I'm just a shooter. All I do is stand on the perimeter and watch everything else that happens. And I think Buddy Hield is showing that he does have the basketball IQ to be able to do that to some extent. Now, he still has a lot of work that needs to be done. I still think that he is looked at as the staple scorer of this team right now, which may be unfair or unrealistic, but that's just what it is. Whether that's going to be the case going forward or not, I'm not sure. But the worst that Buddy Hield is going to be on this team, or the worst that you want him to be, is the second, maybe even the third option as a scorer. So as of right now, I look for him to relish this opportunity, knowing that he is the number one guy, to play with confidence, play aggressive. If he makes mistakes, at least he's trying, right? I would rather see him make a mistake being aggressive than try and play safe and fail, if that makes sense. Exactly. And I think he's doing that.
Exactly. And I've told fans, and I said this yesterday, Buddy Hield is making mistakes because he's not used to Dave's system yet. He's a guard. He has the ball a lot more than a guy like Scal, any of the big guys. So he's bound to make mistakes. It's going to take some time, repetition, experience, things that he doesn't have yet. But when you talk about the positives, his release point is perfect. It's hard for defenders to block his shot because it comes out so quick. He has good lift on his shot, which are all things that are broke down in that Buddy Hield breakdown. So if you get a chance, check that out. Let me know what you think, Matt, and everyone watching this. But when I look at Buddy, I see a guy who is extremely confident, and that's something that Ben didn't have as a rookie. That's something that Ben didn't have as a second-year guy. That's something that Ben didn't have as a third-year guy. He started to see that, or to develop that a lot more in year 4, which is this year. But it's a little bit too late for Ben. So when I see these comparisons of Ben and Buddy, I'm like,
ridiculous.
Like, Buddy right now is already better than Ben McLemore. Like, he is. So for me to see that, it's like, dude, just stop. Like, anytime any player goes to the Kings, all of a sudden they're like the worst players in the world, right? Because coming to the Kings has this negative connotation, I feel like, and it's not fair. But again, when the Kings start winning, all that's going to go away. We all know that, Matt. And I just hope it goes away sooner rather than later. I like Buddy a lot. I love his confidence. I like how he gathers his teammates at times. I don't know if you noticed, it's like he's trying to be that leader. And he told us in the locker room, I want to be that leader. That's just who he is. That's his personality. And I love it, Matt.
And the guy is still a rookie. That's what's so hard for people to wrap their brains around.
23 is not old. I'm 23.
Yeah, this guy, if you want to compare him to Ben McLemore, he's equal, if not better than Ben already. And Ben is, what, a 4-year veteran in this league now? And Buddy's in his rookie season. Give me a break, guys. Give the time. Same thing with the Scal Labissiere conversation. Give the guys some time. For God's sake, I know patience is a hard word for Sacramento Kings fans, and I totally understand. Patience kind of goes out the window when you've been in a 10-plus year drought from the playoffs. I totally get that. But dear Lord, don't hold a struggle of a franchise over the heads of kids who are 21, 22, 23 years old trying to come in and figure out their niche in the NBA. As good as you are at Oklahoma, as good as you are at Kansas, as good as you are at the University of Kentucky, as good as you are in college, the jump up to the NBA is monumental. It's unlike anything you have ever seen just because of the size and the athletic ability of the guys you're playing. Suddenly you're not playing people your age anymore. Think about it. When you rise through the ranks of basketball from AAU to elementary to middle school to high school to college ball, you're playing people within 3-4 years of you who are kind of in the same aspects of life in terms of their body type or their IQ or their athletic ability. Then you come into the league as a 22, 23-year-old, and suddenly you're matching up against 28, 29, 30-year-old basketball specimen in their prime. You're also facing 32-year-old basketball geniuses, and you're facing people your age who are super athletic as well. Give it a rest, give it a break, and let these guys take their time and develop. Don't put so much expectations on the shoulders of Buddy, but recognize the ability that he has to fill those expectations in the future. But he's already making strides. The comparison to Ben McLemore is ridiculous and naive because already the one major difference, and I'll tell you right now, the one major difference between Ben McLemore and Buddy Hield, and you can talk about his shot, you can talk about his defensive ability, whatever you want to talk about, basketball IQ.
Exactly.
That's the first difference, and that's the most important difference between the two players. And just watch how Buddy Hield moves when the ball isn't in his hands. That's the perfect example or the perfect indication of why Buddy is more suited to play in the NBA than Ben McLemore is right now. Again, Ben is a really nice guy, and he's shown a lot of strides this season that I'm
as a person.
Right, and I'm very impressed with a lot of stuff that he's been able to do this season. But Buddy has gotten it immediately that it's not just my job to stand out here and wait for the ball to come to me to be effective. I can move and I can help my teammates without the ball in my hand, and that takes a smart player. Buddy is a smart player, and I think sky's the limit for the kid if he can remain or he can continue to develop and recognize what it is he does well and build upon that.
Buddy love, Buddy fresh, Matt. I'm high on Buddy. I'm not as low as many fans. And, I'm not even going to say many fans because I see that on Facebook, on Twitter sometimes. But, again, most of these guys that are not Buddy fans are huge DeMarcus Cousins fans. And they're still hurt that he was traded. And he's going to come in with that weight. You got traded for DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
Again, it's unfair. And people were like, oh, why couldn't they get Buddy without giving up DeMarcus? And I'm like, how is that going to happen? Like, why would the Pelicans ever give up a nice prospect and Buddy for a guy not named DeMarcus Cousins? It's ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and it's not like Buddy was lighting things up in New Orleans, so we want to be careful with that because player for player, no way DeMarcus and Buddy Hield are equal, and so don't think we're saying that.
No.
But you look at how the Pelicans are playing right now, and you look at the one area of their game that's really struggled and why they're not winning right now is they're shooting. And whether Buddy Hield was only 8 points a game or whether he was 15 points a game, he was still a perimeter threat that could open up the game for a big man like Anthony Davis.
And they took away Langston Galloway, who was shooting lights out for them.
Exactly.
He was smart enough to actually do that.
Two shooters that the Kings got in return for DeMarcus Cousins. Now, again, right now, value for value, it doesn't add up. But in the future, it could, plus these draft picks. And that's what I want to talk about now is the draft pick situation, Leo, because the Kings want to lose to hold on to theirs. The Kings still want the Pelicans to lose so that they can get the best pick that the Pelicans want. And not to stray too far under the Pelicans side of thing, but I want to address a comment that you and I talked about right before the show started in regards to DeMarcus Cousins and the New Orleans Pelicans. A lot of people are saying the reasons why the Pelicans made this move, trading Buddy Hield for DeMarcus Cousins and Langston Galloway and a draft pick for DeMarcus Cousins.
And Tyreek, who was a ballin' tonight.
Tyreek, too. The reason why they made this move was to solidify their future. That's what a lot of people are thinking, that the Pelicans are going to be able to sign and lock down DeMarcus Cousins to a long-term contract, and they will have him then long-term, so it's a good long-term move. If that happens, great. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. The way it's going right now, I would be surprised if he did resign there, but I don't know anything. I'm just going off of pure speculation. But the number one indicator of why this move was not meant to be for the future for the Pelicans is the fact that they traded away their number one draft pick in what's considered to be one of the strongest drafts in years. Guys, the Pelicans traded for DeMarcus Cousins and put him alongside Anthony Davis so that they would win these games, so that they would win games against Toronto like they lost tonight, so that they would beat teams like the Mavericks, which they've lost to. That's why they brought him in to make a playoff push. It was pretty clear. It's not working out for them, which is a good thing for the Sacramento Kings. That's what we want. So you don't want to root against DeMarcus Cousins, the person, or even the player, because a lot of us are fans of what he does and who he is. But it's okay to want to root against the Pelicans being successful because the Kings want that draft pick to be in the 5, even 4, 5, 6, 7 range, and then they want to hold on to their pick to be in the 9 or 8 range. There is a very good possibility if things keep going how they're going right now that the Kings could end up with pick number 5 and pick number 8, and that would be phenomenal for the building blocks towards the future, which will turn into another conversation about Vlade that we'll have in just a little bit. But I want to hear your thoughts on that, Leo.
5 or 8. I'm looking at 4 and 7 or 4 and 5, Matt. I mean, right now it's 4 and 5. So, I love it. You know, you don't want these guys to lose games, and as a fan, you want them to win. But at the end of the day, as I said yesterday, looking at the big picture, you want this to happen. You want them to be competitive. You mentioned that earlier, Matt. And you want games to be exciting and for games to be close, but for them to ultimately lose these games. Now, with that said, and I'm going to say it again, there are about 10 players in this draft that have a chance to be stars. That's something to salivate over. And the Kings will have 2 of those guys. Now, will those guys be stars? We don't know that yet. You know, Vlade has an opportunity to strike gold in this upcoming draft. And the rebuild process can be a lot faster than what we thought if you do land and if you do strike gold, Matt. And when you look at guys like Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr., you know, Jason Tatum, all these guys, man, TJ Leaf, you know, it's exciting to see that. And, you know, I can easily see them grabbing their point guard of the future and their small forward of the future in the same draft. Now, that would be ideal. But if it doesn't happen, as I said yesterday, and I delved into free agency, they're going to have about $35 to $50 million to spend, Matt.
Yep.
So that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And the consensus guy that I would go after is Otto Porter. Guy was 23. I would completely max him out. A guy who can grow with the young core that they already have. I mean, this guy is one of the best three-point shooters already in the game. Right. He's a two-way player, a 3-and-D guy. So even if you don't grab a small forward, because I'm convinced that the Kings are going after a point guard in that first round, no question about it.
They may have to.
Yeah, so you do that. You have guys like Jeff Teague, who are free agents, George Hill, so solid vets. I said this, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. I think my biggest frustration with just like GMs and just how people exaggerate over how much a guy makes, I have this type of mentality. And if I was a GM, this is how I would negotiate. Because if I draft a small forward and a point guard, I'm going to want solid vets to really start, you know, next year and really bring my rookies up slowly, right? I don't want to throw them into the fire right away. So, for example, a guy like Jeff Teague, I would give Jeff Teague $22 million a year for 2 years. I would, because at the end of the day, in year 3, that money is coming off the books. And if you look at the roster, all these guys are pretty much on rookie contracts. So you have to spend the money anyway. And I don't know why people make such a big fuss about how much a guy makes. If you sign them short term, I don't care if you have to pay him $30 million, because at the end of the day, that money is coming back to you in 2 years. That's what I don't get. I want to hear your take on that.
No, and a lot of people look at long-term contracts, 5+ years, 4+
That's
years.
different. I'm talking about 2 years. Maxing them out, completely maxing them out.
No, and I understand that. But a lot of people don't measure success or a good contract based off of money. When they see a max-out deal, what is the first thing they really look at? Well, the length, how long are you going to lock a player up like this? That's because most long-term max deal contracts revolve around star players. I agree with what you're saying. However, I would not offer max deal contract 2 years for Jeff Teague if it hindered my chances of landing someone like an Otto Porter. If it kept me from being financially able to throw my money into the hat of a big name free agent that you could potentially get long term, then it becomes an issue, in my opinion.
So essentially, you have to spend that money anyway.
No, and I totally get it. But
yeah,
if you throw all your money at a guy like Jeff Teague for 2 years right away, you might be able to lock him up. And I totally agree that you will get that money back eventually. And it's not that big of a commitment. I mean, it's a tough paycheck. And if things don't work out, that's a tough contract to get rid of in terms of a trade. So there's a risk-reward factor to each side. I think it totally depends on the situation for the Kings. If the Kings go out and do draft a point guard who they think will be a star in the league, or their starting point guard in 1 to 2 years. And you really don't have much faith or have much of a chance at landing a guy like Otto Porter, or maxing out someone to become like a staple big name splash in free agency. Then yes, you make that move. It's totally dependent upon the situation. And I think people need to recognize that any max deal given, the amount of years on that contract
is everything to me.
Yeah, well, but they don't. It doesn't suggest that the contract is good or bad just because if it's only 2 years versus 4 years, and that's where people, I think, get in a lot of trouble. Is people see a name like Jeff Teague and they think, "Wow, great, that's a great name that the Kings got." They hear max money and they think, "Okay, the Kings are really committing to this guy," and then they see 2 years and they're thinking, what the heck? We're throwing this much money at a guy for only 2 years. Why wouldn't we want to try and go get him and make him a king for life? For long term, he's going to be a king for the remainder of his career. That's where people,
short sight mentality that most fans have.
And that's where people get in trouble. So in that area, in that respect, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm basing this off if they draft their point guard, which I'm like 99% sure that they are going to draft their point guard. And going back to Otto Porter, they're going to max out John Wall, and they already maxed out Bradley Beal over $120-some million. So they're not going to have that money, Matt. And I kid you not, I would offer Otto Porter $25 million a year. I would. Yeah. So say you do get him, you take Garrett Temple with you, who is a mentor for Mr. Otto Porter, and you go to Washington, you convince him, all of a sudden you have a huge asset. Even because with the salary cap going up, that contract doesn't look that bad anyway. Like, say it doesn't work out 2 years from now, he's all of a sudden an asset that teams will want to go after, Matt. So, and he's 23 years old. He's going to be 24 next year. That's why I'm saying, like, you max these type players out. And guys like Jeff Teagues, you want to give them short-term deals, even though they want long-term, because it's probably their last chance of getting a long-term commitment, and agents want long-term. But if you're an organization, you want these guys short-term because you don't know if it's going to work out or not. You don't want to get stuck with a bad contract for 4 to 5 years or even 3 years. Even if you give them a third year, you want that third year to be a team option and not a player option. So that's what I mean by signing these journey guys that can back it up on the floor and still be good locker room guys, right? Guys like Anthony Tolliver, guys like Garrett Temple. You want these guys to be great organizational guys, but you also want them to be good on the floor. It's great for these guys to be mentors, which is great, but you want these guys to be good on the floor because that's how these young players grow and become better, because they're going to respect you as a person and they're going to respect you as a player, and they're going to want to beat you out for your position, which is what you want.
Yeah, and we know very well in Sacramento the way you're going to attract names like Otto Porter. They're not super phenomenal mega stars like a Russell Westbrook, a James Harden, or a LeBron James, but Otto Porter is a very, very solid pickup, and the way you attract very, very solid pickups in a market like Sacramento is you have to throw the money at them. So we shouldn't be surprised. And a lot of Vlade's job security is going to be based off of how he does in this draft. But I think free agency is also a major part of it. And I think each side relies on one another maybe more than it has in recent years. A lot of times you'll see teams go out and draft a big man and then not hesitate to still go out and sign a massive contract big man, just because, it's all about what helps me right now. What can I go out and get? Free agency and draft, I believe, are going to play off of one another a lot in this upcoming offseason for Vlade. And as we are approaching the end of this podcast, Leo, I want to touch on really Vlade's performance evaluation a little bit, kind of a short little performance evaluation here, because in the grand scheme of things, Vlade really hasn't done that bad. And I know a lot of people have been calling for his head over the past couple of weeks. And I know a lot of people have also been calling me the Vlade kiss ass, or Grant Napier the Vlade kiss ass, or you the Vlade kiss ass. That's really not the case at all when you really break down and look at what he's done over the past 2 years, okay? What's the best move that he's made, in my opinion? he found the coach of the future. He got Dave Joerger. What else has he done? He also drafted Willie Cauley-Stein, who we don't really know completely what he's going to be yet, but I think it's pretty clear that he's not a monumental bust. We still don't know what he can be. But in the grand scheme of things, it's a better draft pick than what we've had in recent years. Quincy Doobie or Thomas Robinson.
Yeah.
And then you go to, let's look at now after this DeMarcus Cousins trade. That's probably the biggest dark cloud that people are holding over Vlade's head, and rightfully so. DeMarcus Cousins is the only superstar that the Kings have had in quite some time. However, look what he got in return. He has 2 draft picks, potentially 2 draft picks, in one of the most loaded drafts in recent memory. Plus, if they lose that draft pick to Chicago, that was done in a move. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was done in a move before Vlade's time. So you can't hold that against him. He's trying to he's trying to salvage that pick as best as he can. So you're looking at 2 solid rookies right there, plus 3 rookies from last year's draft that you drafted in Malachi Richardson, Skal Labissiere, and Papagiannis. 2 out of the 3 we've at least seen that they belong in this league, and we've seen an inkling of what they can do. Papa, we still don't know.
Bogdan out of it.
Yeah, you got Bogdan out of it as well. Another solid rookie coming over. We don't know much of what's coming, what he's going to be yet, and how his game's going to translate to the NBA. But you have that, and then on top of that, you went out and basically got a top 5 pick in Buddy Hield in this trade. Yep. In the grand scheme of things, and I keep saying that, I need to stop saying that. Vlade has a top 5 pick. Vlade has 4 draft picks from last year's draft, plus Bogdan Bogdanovic, plus Willie Cauley-Stein, who was a top draft pick from the year before, plus the coach of the future, plus he's saved a massive amount of money in letting DeMarcus Cousins go and not signing him to that contract, which he can go out and spend in free agency. There are a lot of good things that Vlade has done for this organization to clean it up. And yes, a lot of people have wanted to see them build, but it's hard to build on a foundation that's built on rotted wood with termites all over. And Vlade is cleaning things up and then starting the building process over again. That's something to be excited about. Again, his job completely relies on this summer, in my opinion. If he fails this draft and does nothing in free agency, he's gone. And there's a good chance that might happen. But as of right now, he's at least set the table to make a major splash that could finally change things around for the Kings.
Much like Reggie McKenzie, he inherited a mess, Matt. Jeff Petrie, Pete D'Alessandro, they made those moves. They drafted those busts. The guy, Pete's traded away Isaiah Thomas. That wasn't Vlade Divac. And people always, misinformed fans are the fans that say, oh, Vlade traded him away and traded Isaiah. Look, he didn't trade Hassan Whiteside or, Hassan's a whole different story. This guy was a bust with 6 other teams. So there's nothing the Kings could have done with Hassan. With Isaiah, that was
not responsible for Isaiah.
Yeah, exactly. So the only move that was ill-advised and that wasn't a good move was the trade to the Philadelphia 76ers. But that was because it goes back to his inexperience. And if he would have had Kent Cantanella, which he does now, there is no way on earth that trade happens. So he learned from that mistakes. Mm-hmm. He hired Kent Cantanella, which I think is the second biggest thing after hiring Dave Joerger. He is a salary cap guru. Love that move. And you see it with these guys like Aaron Aflalo on pretty much a 1-year deal, Anthony Tolliver, that are team options, that are buyout options. That's how you learn from your mistakes. And again, I blame that on Vivek because Vivek put the pressure on Vlade to say, let's win now. And the short-sighted success, because you had DeMarcus Cousins, you needed to surround this guy with anything that you could to make that 8. You had George Karl, so Vlade was forced to make that move. Was it a good move? No. Was it his fault? Yes. Ultimately, it comes down to Vlade, right? But he was told to win now. And
right.
Exactly. So to me, I'm not going to give him a pass because he learned from that, and he learned by hiring a very good guy the following year, which I really appreciate. So that's his one move that was bad, but the rest have been good. We don't know if Willie, if Scow, if Malachi, if even Big Papa will be busts. He has yet, till this day, he has yet to draft a bust. So stop saying that he can't draft. I dislike that opinion because he hasn't drafted a bust, Matt. And I think these guys will be solid people that can contribute to the future of the Kings. So with that being said, man, Vlade has done a good job thus far.
And I totally agree with you. And I'm going to say something that might push a lot of people the wrong way. But this is really the first year where the Kings have been Vlade's team. And what I mean by that is that last year, Vlade was competing for a contract extension.
Exactly.
As soon as he got that contract extension and Vivek gave him the keys, then he started making these moves. Guys, he made a move in trading DeMarcus Cousins, who Vivek loved and adored. Vivek did not want to get – he had to fight with Vivek time and time again, according to Vlade, that is. He had to fight with Vivek time and time again to convince him to allow him to even shop Cousins, let alone move him. What does that say? Vlade has been trying to make these moves and has had to combat an owner that has been overbearing and needs to just get the hell out of the way. I appreciate Vivek for what he's done in terms of building this arena. Now he needs to take a step back and allow Vlade to really get to work. And finally, we're seeing him get to work and starting to make moves that aren't popular, that aren't what the owner wants, but still might be necessary to bring the Kings out of the hellhole that they've been in for what seems like ever. Vlade is trying to make something change here, trying to make something different. He has decided that decent, that mediocre, that an 8th seed isn't
not good enough.
It's not what I want. I don't want to be hey, we finally got into the playoffs. We broke the drought. Hooray. Let's get swept by the Warriors. At least we had a playoff game in Golden 1-7. No, that's not good enough. My goal is, hey, I see what the Warriors have done. I see what the Timberwolves could potentially do. I see the improvement that the 76ers are making. I want to be a part of that trend. I know how quickly things can change in this league. I want to be a part of that. I'm not going to accept not being a part of that. If it costs me my job, so be it. And he said it with full confidence in an interview with the Sacramento Bee. He said, if this doesn't work in 2 years, I will step down. Now, if this doesn't work, I don't think he'll make it 2 years, but at least he's going for it, and at least he's taking steps in the right direction. How about we admire that instead of put that down because he traded away a superstar who put up stats for a bad team? I want to see results, and I want to see change, and that's what Vlade is trying to do. That's the first effort that we've seen out of our front office since Petrie. That's phenomenal. Finally, there's effort there.
And guess what? DeMarcus is still losing on his new teams. But I don't want that. That was a cheap shot, Matt. But going back to Vlade, I think Vlade is the man for the job. And what I love about Vlade is that he loves the Kings so much that he was willing to make the unpopular move, right? And he's not the guy that will care if, say, he gets fired and someone gets lucky the following year and drafts, a star, and then everything starts heading into the right direction, just like how Sam Hinkie did it with the Sixers.
Right.
The new GM is really benefiting from his fruits, right? And Vlade is not that guy that will care because he wants the best for the Sacramento Kings at any cost. That's what I love about Vlade, that he's not selfish, that he is willing to put his job on the line for the long-term success of this organization, man. And that's really the way I'm going to end it, man.
And don't misconstrue things, too, because Vlade knows that if this doesn't work out here, it's not like he's going to be offered a contract to be the general manager of another NBA franchise.
Exactly.
He knows that he's a one-hit wonder. He knows that this is one shot. And if he doesn't hit, then he's done. Now, he is going to get jobs elsewhere. He has great connections in Serbia. He has great NBA connections still. He can do a lot of things. So it's not like he's going to be out on the streets in rags if this doesn't work out. But he knows that he wants to be an NBA GM. He wants to prove that he can be a successful NBA GM. He also knows that this is his one shot. And he's not playing scared. He's playing to win, which is exciting. And
You're
I
a
think
poker player, Matt. Tell me how it is, man.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'm not a good poker player, but I am a poker player, and I know that I don't play in there to make only $10 and walk away or try and break even after 3 hours. I want to walk out, triple or quadruple my stack. That's what Vlade's doing. Vlade is not playing to break even or make a $10 improvement. He's trying to quadruple and triple his stack.
Not the playoffs. He wants a championship.
Right.
If your goal is to make the playoffs, that's sad. Like, your goal should be to want to win a championship, and he was very vocal about that.
Right. Now, there are building blocks. There are sub-goals to get to the main goal, but your main goal really was, for the Kings, their main goal was to make an 8th seed.
That's sad.
That was wrong. If their main goal is to make the championship and their sub-goal is this season make the 8th or 7th seed, and then the next season 5th or 6th, and then the season after that top 3, then now we're talking. But when your main goal is to make the 8th seed, you're not going to go anywhere. Your future is as dark as your past. And Vlade is trying to change that, and I'm excited about that. So I want to know what you guys think, because we've said a lot of things in this podcast based off of the comment section. I know a lot of you don't agree with me with what I said about Skal Labissiere, and that's okay. I want to hear why. Do you agree with Leo and I about the draft pick situation? Are you enjoying at least watching the Kings, knowing that the games are somewhat entertaining? Are you enjoying watching the development of these players, even though the Kings are losing? Are you enjoying, or do you agree with Dave Joerger's rotations? Do you want to see them change? Do you have any idea as to why Dave Joerger is not playing Skal Labissiere late in the game after having such a solid first half? We want to hear your comments on that. And then on what we just talked about, I know the majority of fans, at least the vocal fans on social media, are anti-Vlade right now. I understand that. Tell us why. Address everything that we just said, why we're excited, and tell us why you're maybe optimistic or not so optimistic. And please refrain from making it a personal attack on the guy. And how about you just look at him as a general manager trying to make the changes that he's trying to make? If you don't like the DeMarcus Cousins move, tell us why from a basketball standpoint. Don't tell us why Vlade Divac is an egomaniac idiot who is a tyrant who hated DeMarcus Cousins because DeMarcus Cousins was the good guy and put him down like this is Game of Thrones. We don't care about that kind of stuff. That kind of conversation does not belong in a journalistic area. It does not belong anywhere near basketball conversation. Basketball conversation is about basketball. So tell us why and all of that. We want to hear your comments. We love your feedback. Twitter at MattGeorgeKHDK, at BizLeo, also at Cowbell Kingdom to reach both of us directly through the website itself. You can leave comments on the website itself. You can leave comments on Facebook. You can leave comments on Instagram. We see it all. There really is no excuse. So please give us your feedback. Leo, anything else you want to say?
That's it, man. Actually, I do want to talk about it, but I think it might be better for another podcast. It's about Lonzo Ball's dad. I don't know what your thoughts are on Lavelle.
Oh my God,
I love him. So and I feel like you don't like him.
Wow.
So yeah. So
wow.
I think we can save that and it'll be entertaining.
Yes, we will
keep that in there. You see how I did that?
Yes, we will tease that for next podcast. All I will say is you like LaVelo Ball.
I love him,
and I'm just going to say this right now, and it's not going to be popular, and I'm prepared to fight off the witch hunt. I would avoid Lonzo Ball the plague. I would avoid him like the plague in this draft. No
Lonzo
chance.
Ball is the best player in the draft.
If I'm the Kings, I'm avoiding him like the plague. We'll talk about that next podcast. But until next time, my name is Matt George. Don't kill me. That is Leo Beas. Have a great night. We'll talk to you very soon. The Kings lose to San Antonio, but the future is starting to look bright. Yay! Thank you for watching. This has been the Cowbell Kingdom podcast on cowbellkingdom.com.